there was one thing I wanted to ask you before is, and you were asked about on another show, but I don't know the backstory. Is you were supposed to feature in a Contender Series bout, right? What happened with that?
Well, actually, what a lot of people don't know, because of my sparring with DC and Kane, and that was my first, like, I don't know too many heavyweights whose very first training partners are these guys.
Yeah.
But those were my very first training partners. So there was a lot of expectation from me. And my very first fight was actually part of that 4-fight Contender Series deal. I was supposed to have 2 fights on Dana White's Looking for a Fight.
Okay.
And I was supposed to have 2 fights on the Contender Series. My first fight was against Saeed Soma. I lost that in the decision in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, on the Titan FC. And my second fight was supposed to be against Jurgen De Castro for the Contender Series. So I had a 4-fight deal lined up, but after that Saeed Soma fight, they put me at 0-1, and that kind of whole thing kind of fell through because you can't put an 0-1 fighter on TV.
Interesting. And in that fight, because I don't know, it's kind of hard to find what happened. I mean, that was your first pro fight.
Honestly, he's a tough dude.
Yeah.
He's a tough dude, and I did my research, but he had been in the game for a while, and he really knows what type of fighter he is. At that time, I was still trying to figure out what type of fighter I was. I was throwing literally the kitchen sink from the get-go, and as the vets, when you really start to figure out things, you learn how to pace yourself, you learn how to game plan, you learn how to use certain like chess moves to get ahead. It's not just go, go, go. It's not, you got to really get out of that wrestling mindset. Wrestling mindset's just, imposing your will. But you got to be more of a chess player in MMA.
I'm sure that taught you so much.
Absolutely. And, I'm proud of myself because, I didn't get finished. I went to a decision with a very tough opponent, my very first fight.
And then since then, you've just been knocking guys out. Yeah. In a way, though, do you feel like, are you ever like, okay, wait, maybe I'll keep it for like 2-3 minutes so I could show a few more skills? Because, in like the last fight, I mean, to be fair, like people, are incredibly impressed by 18-second knockout, but like you're so much more of a fighter than just, a guy who can knock someone out. Like, because if someone doesn't know your background, right, they see you knock him out, they're like, oh, this guy has heavy hands. Little do they know you're an All-American wrestler. Like, is there ever a feeling of like, okay, wait, maybe I should try to show a little bit more? You're just like, nah, let's finish this thing.
I'm going to keep doing what I do to finish people fast until someone makes me show more. Yeah. I do a lot. I get a lot of work done in my sparring sessions. I work with, like I said, I'm helping. So I got here a little late. I was helping Corey Anderson prepare for that fight coming up with Bader.
Oh, right.
He's looking real good. But I get a lot of work done with that, and Corey's definitely someone that keeps me on my toes, and he definitely earned the name Overtime.
What's it like working with he's not only a UFC vet, he's a legitimately very good, he's fighting at light heavyweight?
Yes.
What's it like getting work with some of those guys? Do you feel like you improve quicker because you work with guys like Corey?
I believe so. It feels like home, weirdly. He gives me the same type of vibe that DC and Kane did. So that's why it works so well for me to be home. Like, I have a place to go when I'm in Jersey that I've been at, and I have a place I can always go back to AK. I still keep in contact with Coach Hav. When I get to that next level, I plan to, have a little reunion with all my people. But, right now, obviously this pandemic's changed some things, and like you said, I'm a busy man. I do a lot of work from home in Jersey, and that's kind of like where I plan on being right now.
Do you set goals for yourself on like when you want to have your first fight in the UFC or stuff like that, or you let management take care of it?
We're looking at next year, start of next year.
Okay, start of next year for your first UFC bout. And they don't want to, you skip Contender Series kind of vibe?
I'll leave that up to them. Whatever. I'm with whatever. I'm just looking to start pushing.
Do you ever think about, okay, I want to be UFC champion by X year? Is that how you think or no?
No. At the end of the day, it's a business, and I'm realistic with it. You got a rookie contract, and like Dana said, it's the best way to make a lot of money and get to the top is just be active. I definitely there's some killers in the UFC, and I want to be paid when I fight those guys, obviously, like anybody else. But I'll face anyone they throw at me when I get there.
Is there anyone that you were like, you know what, I really just want to fight this guy?
No, I don't have any beef with anybody in the UFC. I mean, there's a few guys in wrestling that I wouldn't mind fighting, but I'll keep that to myself until the time comes.
Do you, when you're fighting, I mean, do you have to like switch on? Because what I'm always fascinated, and I've had obviously a lot of fighters on my show, and there's some of the nicest people, like genuinely some of the most respectful, nicest people, but then I would not want to be locked in a cage with them for half a second. Do you feel like you have to switch like a light on of like, okay, I'm outside of the cage, Jimmy, but now I have to go and take some guy's head off?
Not really. For me, I think that niceness that you're talking about is that humility, because nobody when you first start MMA is top dog. I mean, and that's very rare. Someone gets beat by someone, but you hardly ever hear stories about it because we got a code about that type of thing. But it happens, and when people might not know that, that's always in the back of your mind whenever you try to not be humble about something. So I think that's at least what keeps me in line. I think fighters are all built the same way. You don't come to fighting without that in you. So it's once you're fighting, you're doing this thing, it's not a surprise that they're a certain way, because I'm used to seeing those type of guys. Yeah, they look like fighters.
What would you say is your biggest motivator?
To do better. I mean, when I was a young kid, I've always wanted to be one of the best athletes in the world. At some point, I thought that was going to be through football, and God's blessed me in many ways to be able to try to get there. And I'm having a lot of success and a lot of fun with MMA. So that's how we're trying to do it. We're trying to be one of the best athletes in the world with MMA.
I mean, honestly, you have a pretty incredible story, because having the success you did in wrestling in high school, being the #1 prospect in the country, and then going to football. I mean, there's so many different moments where like you could have said, the football thing's not going to work, or, oh, the wrestling thing's not going to work. But here you are, and, 29, and you're, a top prospect at heavyweight, and soon going to fight for the UFC one day. I mean, it's a pretty crazy journey when you think about it. And that's only in about, what, 10 years' time? 10, 12 years' time? I mean, looking back on it now, I mean, have you been able to take a second to be like, holy shit, this is kind of crazy that here I am?
I mean, we talk about it all the time. I mean, I think eventually one of my many things is going to be to write a book about it, so I can talk about it in detail, because there's definitely a lot of different moves and a lot of different things that people don't know about. And, one of my great friends, Ed Ruth, everyone knows he's one of the best Penn State wrestlers of all time, he's one of the key components to how I got into MMA. Without him, I would have never really taken the leap to go out there and fight.
Why is that?
Just because he was my roommate at college. I was, Manchester's like, a little bit of a small town. At the time, Monmouth made sense because it was close to home. After those 2 years, I was ready to go out to something bigger. Take those trans buses and be in a big school, just a big environment, and that's why we made the choice with Penn State. But a person who helped me get through a lot of that stuff when I first got there was Ed Ruth. So,
what were some of the conversations you had with Ed?
Ed's a wild character, so I don't want to go into all that. But he's a great dude, and he, like I said, he was a pivotal part in me getting into MMA.
Thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't done so already, please make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Instagram at felix.levine, and if you have something to say, please leave a comment.